Ford has built its identity on its legacy, and now has staked that identity on one of its best-known legacy badges, the Bronco. Even some enthusiasts might not know the origins of some of the most recognizable American brands, but even people who hate cars know the story of Ford, its founder Henry Ford, and the impact of the Model T. Ford is a story as much as a brand. Recent releases that revive legacy badges has Ford banking on that history to secure its future, and the Bronco is key to that plan. You might think it'd be hard to make yet another SUV standout in a company that already offers 4 steps of SUV, all starting with E and accurately describing the level of use. While arbitrary naming conventions are good for building a sense that there is a family of vehicles, they don't exactly ignite the passions. It's that kind of name recognition Ford is banking on, bringing back the Ford Bronco. This isn't a new practice. Since its legendary days as the flagship Mopar contender, some rather unfortunate cars have worn the Charger badge before the big Hemi 4-door brought it back to its muscle car roots. Ford itself is no stranger to this. They tried to give their 2 most recognizable badges a sequel with the Mustang II and the Bronco II. Just like in the movies, the sequels are rarely as good or well received.
I think I know that guy.
So, for the 2021 Ford Bronco, Ford made sure to do more than slap on some styling cues in the old Bronco name. Instead, they set their sights on the domestic off-road leader, Jeep, and made sure their offering came with buckets of off-road ability. That's the biggest thing that separates the Ford SUVs that start with E and the Bronco. The E's 4-wheel drive is for rainy and snowy days or short drives down developed dirt roads to open camping spots at best. Take the Bronco where the pavement ends, and it'll introduce you to a whole new truck. The Bronco is gunning for the Jeep Wrangler, which has more or less had the pure off-roader market to itself for far too long. A Jeep lifestyle is built up around the Wrangler, and Ford wants in on that market. It starts with the configurations. The slap-sided off-roader gives the owner the option of deciding exactly how much of it they'd like to take with them. The doors are removable in 3 easy steps, and the roof, depending on which model you choose, comes off in sections, as well with the option for a soft top for people who need to adjust the amount of cover on the fly. While there is no V8, the 2.3-liter EcoBoost producing 270 horsepower comes out the Mustang EcoBoost, and for those that want more, can find it in the 2.7-liter Turbo 6 that cranks out 310 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. Upsize engines only come in 10-speed automatic, but the 2.3 offers a third pedal as well as a bonus low gear for rock crawling. Like any proper modern off-roader, it comes with a little dial that allows you to select what terrain you're covering, and for the Bronco, it's labeled GOAT, or Goes Over Any Terrain. Turn the dial all the way to rock crawl, and the truck will manage locking and disconnecting the anti-roll bar, as well as modulating throttle, brake, and transmission. All you have to do is aim the Bronco in the right direction. That process is aided by the 360-degree cameras that give you a view of all the corners of the truck. So you don't even need a spotter. It even has a feature called Trail Turn Assist that will lock the inside rear tire, causing the truck to pivot around it and tightening the turn radius for when you're in those extra tight spots. The list of features literally goes on and on, with a Tolstoy-worthy owner's manual that clocks in at over 500 pages. Ford has made sure that the Bronco isn't just a return of a name, but of a capable off-roader that can take on the trail-rated Jeeps. It might seem like all these trail-specific features would make the Bronco an expensive vehicle made for a niche market, but the base model Bronco that still comes with Billy Goat off-road capabilities starts at $30,000, or about what you pay for an entry-level sports car like the Mazda Miata. With such a dramatic departure from the SUVs that start with E, just where does the Bronco fit into Ford's lineup? The Ford F-Series pickups have been the heavyweight champions of vehicle sales in the US for a long time, but the workhorse truck that lends itself to fleet work is more functional than fun. To brighten that mood, Ford has tried a number of special editions, like the hot rod Ford F-150 Lightning, which will now, appropriately enough, be lending its name to the upcoming F-150 Electric. To shake that fleet truck feel, Ford has brought back the Ranger badge. That'll be followed up by a smaller offering aimed at the Hyundai Santa Cruz, taking the name off of Ford's old compact, the Maverick. The Maverick pickup truck will have hybrid as its base model, capable of 40 miles to the gallon and a starting price of $20,000, making it an attractive option for someone who wants the function of a pickup truck but doesn't need one of the behemoths that dominate the market. Will the return of the mini pickup mean the return of the custom mini pickup lowrider that was popular for the last half of the 80s? Maybe. Probably not.
What?
We may never experience the magic of a dancing truck bed again. Maverick isn't the only badge to slip from car to truck, and the other one is a badge that never went away. The Mustang has been the last man standing in the pony car world, continuing production since its introduction halfway through the 1965 model year. Ford is experimenting with the idea of a Mustang sub-brand in their line by putting the Mustang name on their battery electric crossover, even playing on the Mach 1 designation as Mach-E for electricity. The Mach 1 will return proper Mustangs to fill in the gap left by the GT350. Part of this new effort at Ford comes from the new person holding the reins of the company, Chris Farley's cousin, Jim Farley.
This always has been, always will be, a family firm. Oh, son of a...
No, seriously, they're cousins. But that's not why he got the job. He's the grandson of a Ford employee and rocked a '66 Mustang as a teenager. But he started his professional life over at Toyota, where he learned a thing or two about branding by creating the Lexus brand. He came aboard the Ford Motor Company in 2007 in the hopes of reviving the struggling badge, but wasn't granted the top job in October of 2020. With the Mustang Mach-E selling out its first year and test drivers exhausting their thesauruses in praise of the new Bronco, investors are starting to see value in the blue oval again, lifting their stock out of the doldrums it was in. Farley and Ford are hoping that the continued rollout of these legacy badges that don't ignore the fun and function will bring Ford to the forefront without relying on fleet sales of their stalwart F-Series trucks. Ford's story might be rooted in Americana, but they are very much an international brand now. While we've more or less have had the Mustang to ourselves, foreign markets have been getting all the excitement that Ford can stuff in smaller packages that make the cars popular with tuners. In the United States, Ford was facing a situation similar to the one that spawned vehicles like the Mustang and the Bronco in the first place. If you watch 2019's Ford vs. Ferrari, there was a hint at the problem that Ford faced. Their cars were functional, but boring.
Ferrari has a message for you, sir. You said Ford makes ugly little cars in an ugly factory.
A young person would rather buy a pre-war Ford for almost nothing and hot rod it up than be caught dead in a modern Ford. But the teenagers who made up the 50s hot rod culture were now the executives at the car companies, trying to convince the old guard that what the young buyer wanted was something cool. Power was cool. Off-road function was cool. In that last category, Ford, much like now, was eyeing the success Jeep was having, outliving Willys. Ford figured it belonged in that market. After all, during the war, they manufactured the GPW Jeep in order to keep up with the massive war effort demands. In a prelude to the modern Bronco, the first Bronco kept the CJ, or civilian Jeeps, in their sights. Like the Jeep, it had a short wheelbase and removable bits, including the roof and doors. The Bronco borrowed from the Land Rover book by giving their off-roader cheap to produce and repair side panels. This simple formula lasted for 12 years, before Ford set their sights on Chevrolet's K5 Blazer. This meant that the Bronco got bigger and, being the 70s, featured a very large engine that produced very little power. In this case, a 5.8-liter that was good for 135 horsepower, and an upgrade to a 6.6-liter V8 that increased that output to a whole 149 horsepower. Those are Chrysler PT Cruiser numbers, with V8s and full-size trucks. That wasn't enough to slay the Bronco, however. It got a refresh in 1979 that saw power on the V8s approach 200 horsepower and independent front suspension, making the ride a little easier. The Bronco 2 joined the Big Bronco, this time based on the Ranger platform instead of the F-Series. It was part of the small truck ecosphere that existed in the 90s that included mini pickups, the Bronco 2, and the Chevy S10 Blazer. The Bronco went through 2 more model changes that made slight tweaks to power and comfort, but it was essentially the same truck it was in 1980. Meanwhile, the Explorer was filling the soccer mom market and the off-road market, making the case for a Bronco more and more difficult. Then there was that slow-speed chase where the white Bronco was the star of the show. The Bronco quietly went away, and the era of the e-SUVs took over. As the new century has marched on, there's been renewed interest in that first-generation Bronco, finally outshining its unfortunate brush with infamy. Eager not to make the same mistakes made in the clean but uninspiring Thunderbird, Ford is hoping to offer up excitement as well as nostalgia with their older badges. It's a big gamble, but so far it's paying off. Knowing that Chris Farley's cousin is an automotive executive sort of puts Tommy Boy in a new perspective. It turns out that Chris Farley had something to pull from with a family member in the auto industry, while Chris was a goofball. A beloved goofball, though. Overall, the Bronco is back in action. Ford does provide a competitive limited and powertrain warranty that is similar to its rivals. It does, however, lack the complementary maintenance that other competitors provide, which can be a turnoff for someone who wants more bang for their buck.